Welcome back, everybody. Canes local episode number 50. How about that, huh? Gosh, hard to believe we're episode 50 already. But we're going to dive in a little bit on the Canes, a couple of games this week, a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde syndrome when it comes to those two games. Freddie back on the bench, which is a good sign, and talk about what the hell happened to our defense, and then go spin around the league and a lot more. So I guess we'll start with the 2 games this week. It was like, it was a polar opposite of games. One was absolutely atrocious, and the other was started that way, and then it evolved into what we know the Carolina Hurricanes to be. So, I'll let you guys take a spin at it here on the Buffalo game. Not really much good to say about it. And then we head into the Vegas game, which we thought we were heading down the same path, and then all of a sudden, all hell break loose in period 2 and 3.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with this. To be completely honest with you, I don't think we played particularly well in either game. Um, I thought, yes, while in the Vegas game we came out on the better end of the ordeal, I thought the main difference is Dustin Tokarski has done a great job for the Carolina Hurricanes, 1,000,000%, and I applaud him for his efforts coming up. But we look at that game and it's like, okay, now we can kind of see it's kind of same situation with Kochetkov, where a weak goal to start the game really hurts the team kind of for the rest of the game. Buffalo we had no legs against them, and that was a team where we said we should handle them very convincingly and very easily if we play the way we need to play. We just didn't play the way we needed to play. And main thing boils down to we are, and we'll cover this more in detail here in a second, I guess, but we're so lackluster with turnovers defensively. And the sad part is it's like 3 or 4 guys that are really the head of it, but in all honesty, it's the two-headed monster of Orlov and Burns seems to they throw pucks. They just chuck them wherever they think it might be a good idea to put them. They don't think a second time about it. They just throw it there, and 90% of the time it feels like it's a turnover and it's headed back our way. I mean, in the Buffalo game, the whole decor as a whole was Rod said, he said that was the worst I've seen them play in a long time, and it really was top to bottom. I thought Slavin didn't look great. He was okay. He's kind of like Nick Lindstrom, where I don't think he ever has a bad game, like flat out bad game, but he has moments in games where he just not look good. And I thought that Buffalo game was the closest he's had to a bad game. But you look past him, everybody was in the bad territory just overall. And it was just, I'll pass it over to you, Cam, but I thought our offense never really started clicking until the second, third period. And even then, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen played out of his mind, played really well. He outplayed Tokarski, which I expect him to do. But I thought it just stemmed from the fact that every time we had some sort of momentum going, it seemed like we would try and fling a puck through the neutral zone to be turnover and then a grade A coming back the other way.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's weird because but again, this is at least what I thought the team was gonna be coming into the season, very, basically a 50-50, like 500 team that's gonna get a wild card
Well,
spot.
so
So,
I
and I know
agree with you in that.
I've kind of been saying that for a
I
long
agree
time,
with you
and
in
I
hold on one
get it, I'm
second. I
probably
agree with you
beating
in
the
that regard that we were going to be close to a 500 team. The issue I'm having is the way we're going about doing it. It's not that we're playing decent hockey and we're coming on the bad end of games because we're just the lesser of the two teams. We're playing good hockey. It's that we do these dumb turnovers that lead to grade A's coming right back our way. It's like that's not Carolina Hurricanes hockey. That's where I disagree with this. This is kind of what we were expecting. I wasn't expecting the poor hockey. I was expecting maybe we weren't as good as other teams. I wasn't expecting the poor play.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem that we have is you're saying that's not Carolina Hurricanes hockey. That's not the Carolina Hurricanes hockey we've seen for the last 4 years. But this is a new
Yep.
year. This is a completely different year, completely new team. Maybe there's a new style that they have to adopt to get to that next level, Because again, we can't and this is kind of where I'm not getting frustrated or upset with the team. Like it is what it is. But the yardstick that we have to make is that this is like we have to turn the page. We can't compare ourselves to last year, the year before, the year before, the year before. We're not the same team. We're not going to be the same team. And we're not going to develop into that same team moving forward. It's going to be a different team. It's going to be a different look. They're going to have to adapt and change. That's just how it's going to have to be because we don't have the same personnel. So, we don't have Teravainen, we don't have Pesci, we don't have Shea, we don't have we're missing a lot of the guys that were cornerstones to the way that the Canes played the game 2, 3, 4, the past 5 years. So I think people's expectations are every game needs to be pucks in deep, pressure for 60 minutes, and maybe score 2 goals. I think that's what people's expectations are. Maybe that's not what's going to be moving forward. Maybe it's going to be back and forth, track meet, score 4 goals. You never know. Maybe that's the new norm, it's all about how you look at it, I guess, is coming into this season, my expectations were, okay, you got to flush the last 4 seasons because it's going to be a completely different team, new people, a lot of new people, which again, it is what it is. But I do agree that it's still, the effort needs to be there for sure. And I think that you've seen in a lot of the games consistently this year, at least, is that there's been a lot more games this year. And, I don't want to compare it to last year, but this year specifically, the effort, there's been a lot more games where I've noticed that the effort
Yeah.
isn't there.
Yeah.
They just don't look like they want to be there.
Yeah, that's the
That's
biggest thing.
issue.
That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing and I think Roddy will even say it too, is that, the effort and even Slavin. I mean, he'll say that, the effort's not there and it's just
Yeah.
not guys aren't doing what they need to do. And I think, I don't disagree with you, Kyle, on the Vegas game, but I think what we saw was a lot more of the effort, and that
Yeah.
I think we saw them get to those battles, win more of those 50-50 battles. It wasn't pretty, but they were doing the work, and I think in the D zone, that was the most important.
I think
Other
that was the biggest difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. But in the first period in the Vegas game versus first period in Buffalo, the first period in the Vegas game, no ozone time, but the D zone coverage was so much
Yeah.
better and noticeable.
And the biggest difference was Pyotr
Yeah,
Kochetkov.
100%.
I mean, he was by far the reason we were 0-0 heading into the first break. No doubt, and twice on Sunday, as we say.
Yeah.
So
The thing
so-
that worries me with that Vegas game is that you put in one of Piotr's, other performances outside of what we got out of him in that game. All of a sudden, we're heading into the first intermission down 2-0 to Vegas, who's going to close that game out. And then all of a sudden, it's a different story. So we have this tendency this year to we all of a sudden, we apparently don't realize the game time start is 7:05. We're still stuck on like an 8 p.m. start time. So it's usually about the start of the second period that we actually start the game. But that's going to kill us in playoffs. You come up against a team like Florida and you don't play the first 20 minutes. Guess who's going to score 3 goals in the first 20 minutes? The Florida Panthers are. So if we want to look at ourselves as, and I know Cam, I know you're kind of, like I said, you're very indifferent about this year. I still think we have a legitimate chance to come out of the Metro as coming into going to the Eastern Conference Finals with the roster that we have built right now. I still think we could add pieces 100%. I think Freddie coming back, if he could stay healthy, that shores up a lot of question marks that I was having about this season, in the fact of we were really struggling to have a number one. I think Freddie is definitely a number one guy. And then all of a sudden we now have arguably the best backup goalie in the NHL. And that's your 1A, 1B situation. And then now we can go and look to get maybe a forward. We can go add a defenseman if we need to. I don't think defense is where we need to add. I think we need to look more up front because of the fact that we have both Morrow in the system. We have Ty Smith, although I don't think Ty Smith is the answer moving forward, because I think what's going to end up happening after Scott loses, Nikashin's going to get signed. He's going to come over. He's going to be that guy that in playoffs, if somebody goes down, or maybe not even somebody goes down, he might just outperform somebody. And I kind of have my brain on somebody that's not re-signing next year, I presume. But even if somebody does go down, we all of a sudden have a fill-in NHL-ready guy, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen in the KHL. He's an NHL-ready guy. I mean, like I said, it's even closer than the AHL, so if he's dominating in the KHL, it should be a one-for-one swap. They play on NHL ice now. It's not like they're playing on Olympic ice. I foresee him making that step very simply and kind of easily. So we have the option on defense. Going to add a forward would be a very big asset. Moving over to the Vegas game, though, the thing about the the thing that worries me, and this is kind of the grade A point that I want to go to, is you go look at the first goal for Vegas. Go watch how that kind of breaks down. It starts with Orlov at his own blue line trying to fire a puck cross ice to a guy streaking. But if you look at the video, there's 3 Vegas guys in the way. I'm sorry, Orlov, you're a good passer, but you're not threading that needle. I mean, there are very, very, very few guys, and both of them play on the West Coast, that are going to thread that needle. It's going to be Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. Those are the only 2 guys that are going to thread that needle successfully most of the time. You're not going to do that. So why all of a sudden are we as a unit? Because it's not just an Orlov thing; it's a full unit thing. Do we feel like instead of just playing up the strong side, where we have 2 guys over there breaking and we can just kind of chip it up there, let them get the puck in deep, and then we live to fight another day? Why are we all of a sudden, and this is not just a this game, Vegas game, this is just a symptom of us all year, why are we throwing pucks across the ice into traffic to try and make a better scoring opportunity? That's not the style of hockey that wins you anything. That's a style of hockey that you see out of Toronto. That's a style of hockey you see out of Edmonton.
Yeah.
That doesn't win you anything. So when we see that portion of it, that's what's worrisome to me. It's like, yeah, we have a team that has the capability of winning. We also have a team that's capable of going 500, but we're doing dumb things that's causing us to lose games. It's not like we're competing and it's just a 50-50 game. If we played Vegas like that, if we played every team like that we played Vegas, we're one of the best teams in the NHL. But we have that effort in us. We're just not doing it game in, game out, and we're not consistent with it, because even look at the first period of that Vegas game, we got smoked.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing too, and I think to Cam's point, we'll go back to Kochetkov a little bit, is that, well, at least I will anyways. So, but I think the thing with him is that, to your point, Kyle, though, if we're playing a different team and, that happens against a team like Florida in the playoffs, we're down 2-0, but are we? That's the question, because I think if you go back and look at the record, and I think anybody out there is listening, if you want to find the record, let us know, because, but when he sees a lot of pucks early, because Cam said it at the game, and when he sees a lot of pucks early, he gets comfortable and he plays like he played. The problem is that when we start on time, he doesn't see a lot of rubber, and then we end up losing 3-2. And I think that, not in all cases, but I'm just saying in a sort of a general comment. But the thing with him is that that's what he's got to get through. I think his biggest learning step at the moment, and hopefully Freddie can get him there, is how to play when you don't see shots. And I think that's the biggest thing he's got to learn. And once he does that, he's going to be absolutely electric.
He'll be better than Shesterkin.
He will be. There's no doubt. But he's got to learn that, because he doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know that yet. And like I said, in the concourse, Cam said straight out, said he's playing well because he's seeing a lot of shots. And
a lot of shots. I think he saw 12 or 13 in the first period.
But 12 or 13. But I heard a stat the other day, and you guys maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
If we haven't heard it, I can't.
They were saying,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fucking with you.
That's what I mean, ass clown. So, anyways, but there was 11 of those 12 or 13 shots were grade A in that first period.
I don't doubt it.
That's ridiculous.
He's third in the NHL right now with grade A saves. Or grade A saves above expected.
Yeah. So it's that's the piece of the game where if he can figure that out, and then maybe this is a good way to segue into the next topic, but having Freddie on the bench and in a regular rotation with him is going to be absolutely paramount for us to go really make a really legitimate run at it this year.
So I guess that's at this point, I mean, I know it's only, we're January 19th at this point. For me, and like, I know Freddie's been off. I think he came back right at 8 weeks, I believe. So right at because it was an 8 to 12 week estimation, and he's right at that 8-week mark. So obviously he feels good. He wouldn't come back if he didn't feel good. So
that is the one thing I do 100% agree with you about Freddie, is he will not come back if he does not feel 100%.
Yeah.
So I agree with you entirely.
He will 100% sit on the sideline until he feels as close to 100% as possible. So we know he does feel good and he's ready to be back. Canes are not forcing him to be back because, like you said, he will sit if
Yeah.
he needs to. Like he will not risk it. So it's
So
it's interesting though with him coming back.
Because how much do you play him?
I don't. Yeah, it's tough. Do you go back to the 1-game rotation, like, one
no,
game off, 1 game on?
I don't think you
I don't think
can.
so either.
I don't know. Well, again, it's a matter of what we would like and what is
I
actually going to
agree.
happen. What I actually think is going to happen is you give it a week, it's going to be a 1-run
Yeah.
rotation again. It's going to be that. What I think should happen, I think Kochetkov should play 2-3 games, have Freddie play 1.
I
2,
think if we
1,
could
2.
get
It should be a 2-to-1 ratio.
Freddie playing 1 game a week would be perfect.
I
Unless
think
it's
so.
a back-to-back situation where we have 2 back-to-backs within a
Yeah.
week, I get that. You have to play Freddie 2.
Mhm.
If we can get him playing 1 game a week, that is, I think, the perfect amount of games for Freddie Andersen. It's just like it keeps him in the rhythm, but it doesn't overwork his body. And he's one of those
Mhm.
goalies that I mean, look at all the times he's come back from injury, knock on wood. He doesn't skip a beat very often. It's not he's not one of those guys where it takes him 5 games to get back into the rhythm of it, where we kind of need him to get back into the rhythm of it quicker. He always seems to, right when he comes back, he's lights out. It's just about him staying healthy. Every time he's healthy, he's got some of the best numbers in the NHL. It's just keeping
Yeah.
him in the health department good. So it's like play him once a week, because here's the thing. I think I 100% agree with you. Kochetkov, when he sees a lot of rubber, he's one of the best goalies in the NHL when he sees a rubber early. When we get to playoff times, that's why I believe in him so much, is because in playoffs, you typically are going to see a lot of rubber early. In the first periods of these games, it's either you get 5 shots or you get 15, 20. And there's really no in between. It just kind of depends on the team you're playing. But if Freddie could be in games that we know, if we have to play, like, for some reason, the Islanders in the first round, that's a series that Freddie can wrap up on a nice little bow. That's something that he's going to face 15 shots each game, but in those 15 shots, he's going to be able to make those saves, where I don't know if Kochetkov does it. And then all of a sudden we go to a series like New Jersey, where we know Kochetkov's
Mhm.
going to see 15 shots in the first. Let him run those series. But I think having the ability just to have the tandem going into playoffs gives you that option to kind of play with what you want to do. It's just about getting Freddie over the finish line. And the only way to get that Danish giant over the finish line, you got to be very delicate. He's like a pastry. He's a Danish pastry. You got to be very gentle with him and how much he can be used and abused, kind of thing. Once a week, I think, is his absolute max to get him to that point. We just got to ride out this last year of the contract. I love Freddie Andersen. We can't keep having our goalie go down every year. Like, we can't keep
Yeah.
having it.
Yeah, I know, and I think that your point is exactly right. He's a very delicate's the wrong word, but he is. Let's call it the spade a spade.
He's been injured every year for the
he get
past what feels 10 years.
he's been injured. He's a little bit injury prone, and but I think where he adds a tremendous amount of value is in his leadership with
Mhm.
Kochetkov. I think that's the biggest thing, and teaching him how to see 15 shots a game and come out on
Yeah,
the
'cause
good end.
he's
I mean, I know he said it. I've said it. I'm gonna keep saying it, but that's where the kid needs to grow,
100%.
and I think he knows that. Everybody knows it, and, we'll just see, but I think managing Freddie for the rest of the season, managing his ice time, managing it's all about leg management
Yeah.
for him right now,
Don't let him practice.
because
Like, whatever you got to
don't
do to keep him healthy, just keep, like, if he can only
Yeah,
play games, let him only play games.
yeah,
Let him skate twice a week. Whatever it takes for him to stay
Yes.
in the lineup, we got to do that. Because I
yeah,
love the goaltending combination we have up and down. Every one of the guys, Spencer Martin, we've kind of been around him, sort of thing, but he seems like a great guy. Dustin Tokarski seems like a great guy. I appreciate everything all these guys are doing. We need 2 goaltenders. We just,
yeah.
bottom line.
Yeah, and the
Well,
thing with different, and sorry, Cam, I didn't mean to jump
no,
on
you're
you,
good.
but I think that the biggest difference between those guys, well, obviously the huge difference is the caliber of
Freddie's an
goaltender
NHL
from
number
Freddie
1.
Andersen. Right, but I think the biggest difference is that their teammates, Freddie's a
Mhm.
mentor, and I think that's one of the bigger differences between all of them. I mean, Tokarski's obviously he's an older guy, so he's got, longevity, but he's not been a number one. I mean, maybe early on in his career he had a couple of sniffs at it, But in the reality that, Freddie's a mentor to the kid, and I think that's, and again, I'll ad nauseum, I'll keep harping on it, but that's where it's gonna add the most value and most bang at the
Yeah,
end of the
because
year.
look at Freddie at the start of his career in Toronto. He's very symptomatic of what Kochetkov's going through. Yeah, Toronto gave up a lot of grade A's, so does Carolina, but they'd only give up 20 shots, but 10 of them would be grade A's. And Freddie
Yeah.
struggled. So he had to learn that portion of the game. And I think that that's a portion where, yeah, the reason why Shesterkin looks so good 90% of the time is because he faces 30 shots, 35 shots every single night. It's hard to only face 15 shots. It really is. I
Yeah.
don't envy a goalie that only faces 15 shots, because if you let one up, your numbers are screwed. And goalies know that. That's in the back of their
Mhm.
head. So you let one up, yeah, you're in the 900s no matter what. Like you're like maybe 800. You let two up, you're in the 800s automatically. So for
Yeah.
as much as we don't want to think they care about the stat portion of it, they do. They that's in the back of their mind. And when you're only seeing, I mean, when your 14th shot of the night comes with 2.5 minutes left in the third period, that is a
Yeah.
hard thing to see, because you're like, I'm cold. I haven't warmed up the entire game. But yeah, that's the last little bit of, I think that having the Danish giant backs only going to improve Kochetkov's game, because now on top of that, he has competition. Because if Kochetkov's not
Yep.
playing well, we have a very capable goaltender we can go to. Like a
Yeah.
very capable goaltender.
For sure.
Yeah, so I I think we'll segue off that and sort of maybe talk a little bit about defense, but I also wanna throw maybe a little bit about the sort of the line blunder we had in the last couple of games. I think in the D zone coverage, obviously in the Buffalo game was horrible. And then, we know that, it's not all on the defense. I mean, the defense have to do, but you also have to have back support. You have to have back pressure, so I think we didn't see that in the Buffalo game at all. 0. 0. But I did think we saw glimmers of it starting to happen in the first period, more so than they were on a regular basis. And then the second, third period, I thought our D zone was absolutely excellent. From for the most part, there was a couple of breakdowns, but Jordan Martinook, by far, I mean, I thought he was one of our best forwards. I mean, Svechnikov, I thought had an excellent game.
I think he's
From
turned a
Yeah. The
corner.
last 10
Yeah,
games, I
he's
think
been
has
playing
really
significantly
he's
better.
he simplified his game too, and I think it goes back to, I was going to comment this when you're talking about Orlov. Don't be somebody you're not. And I think Orlov thinks he's a Teravainen. He's not a Teravainen.
Well, Orlov
And I think
he's been able to do that in his career. The issue is he's 32 years old now. He's losing
Yeah.
a step. Like there is a legitimate case that he's lost the step. And I'm from even last year to this year, I think he's looked quicker at
Yeah.
times, but you can tell overall his speed has gone down. And so he's got to adjust his game. And that's the hardest thing for players to do, is adjust their game when all of a sudden they start losing their steps. And that's what makes these great longevity NHL guys, is they have to change how they play every once. I mean, look at Joe Pavelski in the latter half of his career. He was still scoring a bunch of goals, but he was playing a completely different style than he was at the start of his career. And you need that out of players. You need them to be able to adjust. And I just feel like he hasn't found that adjustment yet.
Yeah, I think Fetch is really, he's simplified his game into that power forward, and it was very, very evident in the
Putting
Vegas
him on a
game.
line with Stahl and Martinook's the best thing we could have done. And every time he starts to slide a little bit, that needs to be the adjustment. He needs to go right back onto that line just to get his juices going.
And then I thought it was excellent with Aho and
100%.
Blake.
for sure. That was our best. I think that was our second best line. Sorry.
Yeah.
The best line was Jarvis, Martinook, and Stahl, but offensively at least. But yeah, I think it's a symptom of a lot of the guys too, and even the guys that are in ruts as well. As you have to play what you see. Like, don't play, the pretty play. Don't play the I'm going to get it over 8 guys' sticks and it's going to fall right on this guy's. And that's what Necas has been trying. That's why he's been fighting it. On the power play, man, if I have to sit there and watch him stand still on the power play for 30 seconds, just
His
standing
stick
there.
handling.
Literally, we watched him. We were sitting right above him.
We could see his numbers.
We could see his numbers, watching him sit there doing this. Quick stick handle over here, maybe dish down low and dish back to him, and he stands
try
there.
and throw it through a box of 4 guys, and all 4 of them have their stick in the lane.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Play what you see, and what was there. Like seriously, like what was it from people on the outside looking in? What was there? There was either shoot Or there's ice on the outside.
Move, skate.
Exchange. When is our power play the best? When they're exchanging, when they're constantly moving. Everybody's moving around the outside. Everybody's switching, because then it causes breakdowns in the box for the penalty
Go
kill.
look at
They have
the best grade A scoring chance.
And it's Fetch was doing the same thing, probably a month ago. But again, he simplified his game. He played what he saw when he scored that goal on the power play, where he just took it from basically the goal line and just went to the net and just scored. He played what he was playing what he saw. He saw open ice to the net. He's like, I'm taking it, and he went. He didn't hesitate. He didn't sit there and kind of finagle with it at all. Yeah, and that's part of the biggest thing. And like you said, they got to get back to the simple stuff, especially Necas. I mean, he started off hot and then he just kind of fell off a cliff. I don't know where he's been. So he needs to figure it out.
2 things here real quick. Our best scoring chance on a power play in that Vegas game outside of our second unit, which our second unit's been our better power play unit. They should start every power play until the first unit decides they want to start playing. But the best opportunity for our first power play came off of a exchange from Necas and Gostisbehere at the blue line, and then a quick pass across the ice to Aho. Aho tees it up one-timer, and it goes off the crossbar.
Yep.
That's the only time that whole power play that Necas and Gostisbehere did a flip-flop, and all of a sudden it opens up half of the ice. Hey, call me crazy. Why not try and exploit that more often? I don't know. Maybe just me. Marty Necas, you're one of the best skaters in the NHL. Start moving your feet. If we really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, it's not just on the power play. Go watch the entire game of Marty Necas, or when the next time you guys are in the arena, are they home on the next games? No.
They're on the road for 2 games.
Just watch Marty Necas the entire game. He does not leave one corner of the fucking ice the entire goddamn game. He sits in that one fucking corner, and the puck will get wrapped around the other side, and instead of driving to the net to go maybe get a rebound, he just stands over on the side of the ice waiting for a one-timer. He doesn't ever leave that corner. I swear to you, you can go back and watch the Vegas game. 90% of his offensive zone time is spent between the hash marks and the goal line on the if you're at center ice and you're looking into the offensive zone, on the left side of the offensive zone on his offhand, he spends 92% of the time power play, 5-on-5 shit. If he were shorthanded, he'd probably spend his entire time there. He doesn't move from that position. And
there's only one guy that can do that in the league, and that's Alexander Ovechkin. And he's not Alexander Ovechkin. So,
Alex, but
and still produce.
Even Alex Ovechkin, he only does that on the power play. If you go watch him 5-on-5, guess where he scores a majority of his goals from? Guess where the league scores the majority of their goals from 5-on-5? Within a 2 foot to 2 foot outside of the post and 5 feet from the front of the net. That little box is where I think it's 82% of goals in the NHL are scored from that little box. And in Necas, you want to get back on the score sheet? Go to that fucking box. Stop with the perimeter bullshit. I'm so sick and tired of it, because we want to go watch your first 20 games in this season. The reason why you had so many damn points was because you weren't afraid to play the game. Now all of a sudden you got hit a couple times because you became one of the best players in the NHL because you weren't afraid to play hockey. You got hit a couple times real hard. Now all of a sudden you decided, no more. I'm not going to the middle of the ice anymore. All done. If anybody's close to me within 5 feet, I'm flinging the puck wherever the hell I can get it away from me. It's so annoying to watch. I'm just genuinely fed up with it, because if you have that much skill and the only thing holding you back is the fact that you're scared to get hit, get out of the NHL. Bottom line, get out of the NHL. You're going to get fucking hit. Yeah. Boo-hoo.
Yeah. So here we go. So we got now Marty Necas is for you, Kyle, anyways. Marty Necas, well, I think he's for all of us, but is the new Brett Pesce, like Cam was to Cam last year. So he's like not playing where he needs to be, not getting hurt, not wanting to go to the dirty areas. He's not wanting to.
The only problem Brett Pesce had is he couldn't fucking skate. He blocked shots. He went to the hard areas. He was a hard-nosed defenseman, and we're missing that right now. I never really had an issue with Brett Pesce outside of the fact that
I never said you did. I was just saying that you have a little bit of a stiff.
He's got an axe to grind with him.
You got an axe to grind with Necas at the moment.
Just like I did with
because
Pesce.
as an undersized
That's
Yeah,
all I was
because as an
saying. That's all I'm
undersized
saying.
player that played at a decently high, I'm not the fucking NHL. I know that shit. But as a guy who's playing against 6'6" defensemen that were way bigger than me and getting blown to shit, I understand that you have to, it's a mental thing. But the fact that you're just like, it's so just obvious that he is scared to play in a physical game. What do you think happens in playoffs? Do you think it gets less physical?
Mhm.
Do you think it gets easier to play? No. It gets way fucking harder to play. So if we're going to be a pussy in the regular season, excuse my French, but if we're going to just stay outside and not do what we need to do, wrap it up in a bow, send him somewhere. I don't care. While he's got trade value, fucking ship him out. Give me somebody else.
I don't think the Canes are going to end up re-signing him anyway. I think this, unless he turns another corner and starts producing again at some point this year.
We're not going to sign him for what
I-
he fucking wants, which he wants 9.5. He's not getting that.
Yeah, I mean he can probably go somewhere to get it, and I bet there's a team that would fit his play style. You know, I bet there's a team out there that he can play the way that he wants to play the game, and the team will be built to cater to him. You know, and that's just not going to happen in Carolina. It's just not going to happen. Like Aho is the guy, so they're going to cater to Aho, and you know, Svechnikov's turning the corner. Maybe Svechnikov becomes the guy again. I mean, he was the guy 2 years ago before he tore his ACL. Like it was him. It was his. He was the
bus driver.
lethality. Aho was the playmaker. He was the guy finishing it off. Like, and you know, you never know. I mean, obviously, it was very nice to see at the beginning of the season. I think all of us were still kind of, you know, a little bit reserved with like, okay, you know, he's playing well. He's really hot, but he's got to be consistent. Like he's got to do it the whole year. And you know, we've seen McKinnon. McKinnon already has 70 points now, something like that. And Necas is stuck in the 40s, I think, still.
I think
So
he's had 4 points.
he's been in the
his last
40s for 2
20
months.
games.
I know. So I don't know. I don't want to harp on him too much because again, I didn't play forward, so I don't know. I think that's why I kind of was picking on Pesci a lot. So, but again, it is like I don't know. Like I'm kind of indifferent on all of it because my expectations are I just hope we make the playoffs. That's my expectations this year. I could care less if we win around, if we go to the cup final. I mean, obviously we go to the cup final, it's great, but like overall, my expectations are I just hope they can find a way to get into the playoffs this year. I think that would be meeting expectation for me. That would be meeting expectations.
I have a proposition for both of you guys. Well, I don't know if it would be a 1-for-1 swap, but would you give up Marty Necas for either Pettersson or JT Miller? Because for me, it's either one of them. Heartbeat.
Right now.
This second.
I'm not bringing
now?
JT.
Why are you
Miller
not
in.
bringing
No.
JT?
Yeah,
No way.
I think he's a
Because he's the problem.
I do. I think so too. More and more.
Why are you going to bring it? Why are you bringing a grenade into the organization?
Every one
Why
of
would
his
you do
teammates that he's ever played with, outside of maybe Elias Pettersson, says he's the best teammate.
But I think he's having issues with the coaching.
No, it's
and
just
he's having
Elias
issues with the coach
Pettersson.
too.
Well, he was getting ripped on the bench.
Yeah, but he can take that.
And
That's
he
like
was-
Marchand. You're going to get ripped on the bench. You're in the NHL. If you're not playing
guess.
your job and
I
you're not
don't
doing
know.
it, you're going to get ripped on the bench.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I saw yesterday that JT Miller was on the block to possibly get traded to New York, and then because he was going to get sat out in the game last night because they thought the trade was going to go through with the Rangers, but it ended up not going through, or it's not ready yet, or something. So he ended up playing.
You give
Pettersson wants to stay, and Vancouver is more than willing to cater to what he wants for sure. And that means shipping JT Miller out, basically, is what that means.
You look around the NHL, there are very few. I think I can name 5 guys that play the game like JT Miller does. A 40-goal scorer who's willing to fight, who's willing to check, who's one of the who has some. I mean, you go back to the past couple seasons. I think he's finished in the top 30 for checks, for checking.
Is he a center?
He can. I think. I'm pretty sure. He's playing wing right now, but both him and Pettersson can play center. They both can play wing as well too. But you go. I mean, I can think of maybe one other guy that's in those 2 categories, and it's Matthew Tkachuk, that's scoring 40 goals and also putting up in top 30 for hits and is willing to fight and willing to be. I mean, talk about playoff hockey. JT Miller plays playoff hockey. That just
Yeah. No.
simple bottom line. You'll
Yeah, no, and if he's not an ass in the room and he's gonna bring some value to the team, then yeah, I'd love to have him. A guy like that because we need that big gritty power forward that's gonna and could play second line center. I think, that would be a huge add to our group. The problem is that you don't know what the real issue is. I mean,
That's the
on the
problem.
surface
Nobody really knows
on the surface, it could
unless
be JT
you
Miller, is the guy that's getting all the abuse here, but he's not really the problem. Or it could be the other way that,
I mean,
Pettersson's, getting all the abuse and he's not really
Yeah.
the problem. So it's like, who the hell knows? I mean, that's just, that's one of the, you know, JT Miller is a very strong-willed
That's
person.
so
So
that's what I'm hearing. He's a wonderful teammate, but if you're not doing your
yeah,
job, he's going to let you know about.
he's
He's
gonna
gonna
call you
let you
out.
know about it.
Yeah,
But he's all.
and rightfully
But that's
so.
so that's the thing is
yeah.
that from everything that I'm hearing, that's what his issue with Pettersson is that Pettersson can't take that. Pettersson's not one of those
Yeah,
guys that can take the getting yelled at by a teammate type of thing. So
yeah,
if that's what's causing the riff, I'm sorry, but suck it up, Buttercup Pettersson. You're in the NHL. If you're not doing your job, get ready to get called out because these guys want to fucking win.
yeah.
You only get so many opportunities to win the Stanley Cup, and for a guy like JT Miller who's turning 32 this year, the window's closing. Guess
Mhm.
what? You might have 3 more seasons in the NHL. You get an ACL tear at 35. Whew, that's a long road to recovery. That's not
Yeah,
an easy so all of a sudden you have 3 yeah, Elias Pettersson might be 20, he's 26, he's 27 or something. I think he's the same age as Aho. But so he might be looking at it, I got 10 more years to get a crack at the can, if I have a bad night, I have a bad night. For JT Miller, there's no more time to have bad nights because like I said, the window's closing
mhm,
quickly for him. So if I'm looking at a guy that I want on Carolina, I want a guy who wants to fucking win. And just you look at Aho, he wants to do that, but I think that
mhm.
Aho is one of those guys that's probably a little too kind to be a yeller in the locker room and screaming at teammates. You go look at Colorado. Go ask Colorado players what Nate McKinnon does to you if you're not playing well. He
Yeah,
I promise
yeah,
you, he's
no,
not
no, I
telling
get
you,
it.
"Oh, it's okay, you'll get him next game." No, he's calling your
Yeah,
bullshit out. Like,
yeah,
bottom line.
Well, I
yeah,
guess,
no, and
I mean,
you should.
for me, it's at this point because kind of like Dad, what you were saying, like nobody really knows what's going on. I think the only people that know are the people inside of the Vancouver
Mhm.
organization, and I think the teams that are going to inquire about it are going to ask, like, "Hey,
What the
what are
hell's
the
going on?
issues? Like, tell us what's going on."
Yeah.
And to see that New York's the only team that's really kind of come to the forefront of any kind of trade rumor, a confirmed trade
Well,
rumor,
Carolina
is
and Vancouver had talks for
Well, for
Pettersson.
Pettersson. Yeah.
That was 2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
but
But they've been
so
they've been having that for almost 2 years
yeah, but
now, it
that's been
seems
Yeah,
yeah,
like.
exactly. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt. So my consensus is just stay out of either one of them. Just they can do what they want to do, but I think the Canes need to look elsewhere, honestly, because no, from again from an outside perspective, because none of us know what's going on really. Like it's all kind of up in the air. Like nobody's confirmed anything. It's all kind of smoke and mirrors. Like nobody really knows what's going on. So with not knowing what's going on, I'd rather just stay out of the situation entirely than take on, you know, an
Mhm.
asset, whether that be Miller or Pettersson, that becomes an issue. And then it's like, oh great, like here we go.
Becomes another Tony D.
Christ, like here we go again. Like get them out.
Yeah.
So rather than have that, I say we kind of sit back and watch what happens with the both of them.
yeah.
So
But of the 2 of them, Kyle, I think I would take JT Miller over Elias Pettersson for the simple fact of the playoff
if he's
picture.
not the problem, yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would take Miller.
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing too, and just to kind of be devil's advocate here, there are I mean, I don't think this is the first time that 2 teammates have not gotten along and not seen eye to eye.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one of those things. I mean, you go back and look at go look at the Flyers and our head coach. Him and a teammate had a very big dilemma. And the guy who got traded, Rod, do you think either Rod or Eric are the bad player, bad teammate? No, I think they had their differences, and I know I've heard stories as to what the differences were, and I don't necessarily agree with what Eric did, but you look at those two. I mean, do you say like, oh, either one of those guys is like a locker room cancer? I don't necessarily know if you can put that in there. Maybe Eric Lindros is. I don't know. But there's times where guys have disagreements, and neither one they're a locker room cancer when they're together. But when you separate them out and you put them into better situations, neither one of them is
Maybe.
really an issue. So like it to me, it could very well boil down to these two guys just really never got along. And that's been the issue since day one. It hasn't been that one of them's an asshole teammate or people don't connect. Like people don't gel. There are those people in the world. Like I bet you can go around the league and there are probably, you could probably find two guys in Carolina that if you would never see them out for dinner together. Just because they're not like the best of friends. They're colleagues. They work together. They're teammates. They're going to battle for each other, but they're not best friends. You know, like it just, I foresee that in a situation where we were to get either one of them coming into this culture, it's a very different culture. It's a lot less media frenzy. I think it would be a better situation. I don't know, maybe, but I think like we've hammered this.
Yeah,
No, so that's kind of hammered us into the around the league. So one thing I forgot to mention in our intro that maybe we could circle around now that we're heading into the sort of the around the league thing, but we'll stick a little bit on the Canes. The Canes ordered, or the NHL announced the quarter century team for the Hurricanes this week. So just wanted to run through those and see if any of these are like
any
not
snubs
sure.
or anything like that.
Any snubs or anything like that, but the first team was Aho, Brendamore, and Stahl on the forward line, and then you had Slavin, Wesley, and then Ward and net. So I can't really argue with any of those.
I can.
Given, I mean, the only one that maybe on the D side, maybe, but at the same time, which ones do you think didn't deserve the first team nod, Kyle? Or which one, or which ones?
Any of them don't deserve the first team nod, but I think you're leaving off probably the most important name in Carolina Hurricanes history, which is Ron Franchise. How do you leave?
Yeah, well, he's on the second.
I get he's on the second team, but how do you leave the arguably one of the best players ever to play for Carolina off of the first team? It's hard for me to see that portion of it. And then the second piece is, I love Glenn Wesley. Is he really the best on the best two defensemen ever to play for Carolina? I can think of probably three.
He won a cup.
I get that. Cool. So there was 5 other defensemen that won that cup too. I could probably think of 1 or 2 more that I would probably have ahead. I mean, I love Glenn Wesley. I think Brett Hedican was probably a better overall defenseman than Glenn Wesley was.
Yeah, I can sort of agree, but
maybe just longevity in Carolina.
I think West from the standpoint of a true defensive defenseman, I think he was really, really, really good.
I don't disagree.
And I think he didn't have the offensive jump that a Hedican did, or a Justin Falk, or the biggest thing with Falk is he could just eat minutes. I mean, he could go he could skate 60 minutes a night.
Well, no.
And just never seemed to drop off. And I think, for me, if you're going to have an argument to put somebody ahead of Wes, I would say maybe even Justin Falk, just because of that factor. But I think Wes, he ate pucks. I mean, God, I remember games where he would on the same shift, he would block like 4 or 5 shots and then go to the bench and go back and sit in a cold tub because he was just beat to death. So I think that for me, and he won a cup. So you add that into the mix along with that deep. I think it's a well-deserved role. And I appreciate your opinion, but I do agree that he definitely in my mind deserves that first team nod. Ahead of.
I'm going to throw one name out there. Yeah, he didn't win a cup, but you want to talk about just overall what he did for the organization while he was here until he got injured, which ended up ending his career. I could even see a guy like Joni Pikkanen being in that top 2 names. I mean, look at Joni Pikkanen's career with Carol. I mean, he was like almost he had like 50 points 2 straight seasons as a defenseman in an era where defensemen didn't score a ton of points. I mean, Joni Pikkanen was the guy, and the only reason he
So did Joe Corvo, but are we putting him on that
I don't
list?
think Joe Corvo was never in that 50-point marker. He was good. He had a good shot, but you genuinely go. I mean, I think that we all overlook Yoni Pikkinen because when he was in Carolina, the team as a whole was not very good.
We're bad.
I mean, he was dominant. He was one of the better defense. Even a guy like Dougie Hamilton. I mean, look at what Dougie did when he was in Carolina. I get the point of Glenn. I get the point of Wesley, and I get it. I hear you. I just think that we've had
and also, yeah.
Well, okay. Who was second team? Let me just hear what the second team was, and then we can continue.
Well, the second team on the forward side was Ron Francis, Jordan Stahl, and Justin Williams. And then on defense, you got Justin Falk and Brett Hedigan, and then Archer Zerbe in net. So I think they got it. I think they got it right.
I think so too.
I don't think they got it wrong. I mean, you could flip flop maybe a couple of players.
I just don't like the D necessarily. I guess the Glenn Wesley Brett Hedigan pick. I know I just said Brett could probably be first team, but I just think that we had better D than even those two guys. Maybe it's longevity as well too. That's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of how long have they been with, or how long have they been with the team if they're actively playing, or how long did they play with the team?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, did they win the cup? That's kind of my hard line is, were they part of that cup team? If they were, they get an automatic jump over anybody who didn't win the cup. For me, that's if they're not still playing. If they're still playing, I'll give kind of a little bit here and there, like, okay, yeah, but you won the cup, but this guy's still kind of playing. That's why I'm not putting like Francis over Aho, or Francis over Brendamore, or Francis over
Stahl.
Who's the other guy? Stahl. I'm not putting him over any one of those three guys.
Mm-hmm.
No shot. He didn't win the cup when he was here. Sorry. Like, but he had the worst team. I don't care. He didn't win the cup.
Well, he went to the cup final.
Went to the cup final. They got swept.
So
look, I'm just saying, like, it's
well, and then in that argument,
I don't have any. I also don't have any sympathy for him either. So that might be part of it too. I got a kind of an axe with him. So with him and him and Eddie O and all those clowns that want to, throw jabs at the Canes organization, that's fine. They can sit in their own little bubble in Seattle and do whatever they want. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I still think second team, he deserves to be second team for sure. But first team, nah, no way. The defenseman, that's an interesting argument because I think you can flip Glenn and Brett Hedigan kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You can make the argument for both for sure. I definitely don't think a guy that's not with the Canes anymore, even though he's still actively playing, I don't think he beats out one of those two guys that were on the cup team. So for me, it has to be one of the guys on the cup team. And I think the two best defensemen on that cup team were Brett Hedigan and Glenn Wesley. So it's really a toss-up between those two for me.
Not Anton Babchuk?
No.
Oh, I can't say Anton Babchuk.
Tomas
I mean, Christ, if we're talking about that, we might as well
Caberlet.
pick the guy that I was about to say. We might as well pick the guy that scored the first goal, Frank Caberlet, or second goal, in the game.
Aaron Ward had the first one.
Had the first one.
Yeah. What about Ron Ward?
Yeah,
come on.
Ron, there you go. That's back when concussion protocol was frowned upon.
No.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because that one game he came back. There's no way he should have been on the ice.
He said he doesn't remember Game 7.
I don't blame him.
So
I don't doubt it because he got hit so hard.
He did. He got clobbered.
I mean, I've been bumped into in men's league and about lose my brain, and I'm like, I can't imagine having some of those mammoths hitting me on the ice and then even getting up for one thing. For Christ's sake,
all right, but
having Pronger on the other end.
Yeah,
but before we wrap, around the league, I just have a question. So Washington is 9 points ahead of everybody in the Metropolitan Division. And this is a very, I guess, just, do we think it lasts? Do we think this? I mean, they're 31-10-5. They're getting points so their point percentage is 7-2-8. The 72% of the games they're getting points in, basically 73%. Do we think they can sustain that number for the remainder of the season? Do we expect there to be a digression at some point? and this is nothing against Washington because they were in playoffs last year, but when they got into playoffs last year, we all said they snuck in and they got swept in the first round. They made good offseason acquisitions 100%. Is it good enough to where they're competing for a President's Trophy, or are they kind of punching above their weight class right now?
I would say, gosh, it's hard to say. You don't know. Obviously, we're not prognosticators. We don't have a crystal
Because they're
ball. But
first in the NHL right now.
for the most part, I would say that you know a lot of teams are seeing a different version of the Washington Capitals than they've seen in years past. And I think once you start to get into the second half of the
Teams can
season,
dissect it a little bit more.
we can dissect it a little bit more. I think you're going to see a different version of teams playing against the Capitals. So I think you'll see a little bit of a tail off, but I don't necessarily think that you're going to see a cliff drop. I think they'll continue at a pace. I don't think they can win at a 750 percentage or whatever the number you said for the rest of the year, because that would be a remarkable number to go the rest of the season. So I think they'll probably drop down to that high 50, 60 winning percentage. They'll still win more than they lose, but I don't think they're going to keep clipping along at what they're at now. Hell, I could be completely wrong, and they win 80% of their next games. Who the hell knows? But again, it doesn't matter where you finish the regular season. It's how you do in the playoffs. So, are they building a strategy or a team or a culture that can win in the playoffs? That's the key. And I don't know. You've seen teams that win the President's Trophy and then get swept in the first round.
100%.
So who knows? We'll see. But Carberry's doing a hell of a job. So we'll see what happens the rest of the year.
As of right now, they're on pace to have like 58 or 59 wins on the season.
Yeah. That's old original six numbers. The Canadians had like 140 points or whatever the number was.
That's the Bruins team.
I was going to say the Bruins team from a couple years ago beat their point total, the Canadians, but also when the Canadians did it, they had ties still, so you didn't get that second point if you did tie. So there's that.
Yeah, I think the Caps, I think I've said this kind of from the first 2 weeks of the season. I think they're the real deal, man. They're so good. They're deep, top to bottom. They got size. Their defensemen are so good. So good. Their goaltending is immaculate. Like, it's one of the best duos in the NHL right now.
That's where I question.
So which one? So that's a good point. So what is there a spot that if they get an injury, do they take a completely different turn? Is it goaltending? Is it D? Is it on the up? I know they saw Ovi was out for a while, but
that's what I mean. So that's a good litmus test right there. Is Ovi was out for what?
I don't think Ovi is their most important player.
Along.
That's why.
See, but that's so therein lies my.
I think if you take Dylan Strome out of that lineup, it's a whole different team. In all honesty, I think Dylan Strome's.
How about Logan Thompson?
I think either goalie goes down 100%. It makes a difference. I think the goaltending is playing above its weight class right now, a little bit. Both these guys are really good goaltenders, but you go look at their career numbers, they haven't really reached this mark yet. I think they are punching a little bit above their weight class. The D-core is doing a really good job keeping a lot of shots from the outside, but they still give up a ton of grade A chances, and it's one of those things that can that goaltending suffice in playoffs? That's where the biggest, I think, swing's going to come from. But you take a guy like Dylan Strome out of that lineup, I think it changes the complete complexion of that lineup entirely. I think he's their best player.
Yeah. I think the funny thing for me too is that I'm really under the impression that the whole team is kind of under this spell from Ovi to win the scoring title race, basically, and beat Gretz out this year. I think Ovi is probably the most motivated we've seen him since they won the Cup in 2018.
Most definitely, I agree.
This is the most motivated. Oh, and when Ovi's, he can be he's obviously
so high energy.
He's going to drag everybody with him. So, the funny thing is, I think they're going to keep on this rate. I do think Ovi ends up getting the record this year. I also think they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So that's because I think that they're going to put all their energy into we're going to grind and we're going to grind and we're going to grind. And then they get the playoffs and they're like, okay. And I think and I might be wrong, but I think they're going to kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit, and they're going to get beat in the first round. Now,
Maybe that's what the Canes are doing. They're doing a flip-flop. They grind it right up until playoffs, and then throw a bunch of turds in playoffs and
well,
don't make pass.
that's what Florida did when they went to the Cup final 2 years ago. They were a 500 team coming in. Basically, they barely made the playoffs on the last day. They weren't going to be in the playoffs, and then
They
I think
beat us to
somebody
make
ended up
playoffs.
losing, or
No,
they
they beat us in
winning.
overtime to make
Oh, was
playoffs
it?
in game 82.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so, and then they end up winning a 7-game series against Boston. So, and they go to the Cup final, and it's one of those where you never really know. I mean, it's kind of a hit or miss, but I really think this Washington team, although they are they're very deep, and they're still, I think the injury to any one of the goalies would be pretty catastrophic for them for sure. But I also think that a lot of those guys are pulling on the Ovi rope right now. Like, they're just like, hey, let's get him his goal total, and in turn of getting him there, it helps the team out too, because you're going to win games. So I think that's the rope everybody's pulling on right now. And I think they're going to end up, like I said, I think they're going to do really well. They'll finish near the top of the NHL. I think they'll be one of the top 3 teams, but I also think they lose in the first round of the playoffs. So
Interesting story. When I went back and looked, and we kind of talked about the Greensboro getting the new team in the East Coast League, last week. But I was looking at goaltenders. I was trying to think of, okay, who are the people playing in the NHL that came out of the American or the East Coast League or the American League. And Logan Thompson's actually a pretty interesting story. I mean, he's had a journeyman entry to the NHL to be a number 1 goaltender. I mean, he started in the East Coast League. He didn't come directly into like an American League goalie. He started out in, and Nedeljkovic, talk about the goalie goal. That's a pretty cool thing for him. A goal and assist, leading scorer on the Penguins for that game, I think. But
That's 2 times this year goalies led their team in points. It's wild.
I mean, he gets the goal,
crazy.
but Ned started pretty much in Florida in the East Coast League. So I think when
with goaltending, it's more obvious. It's more of an example, because unfortunately there's only 4 positions.
And that's
ahead
what I
of
was
them.
looking for.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for, is see how many NHL goalies actually started in the East Coast League. When you talk to players and young players and saying, look, it's a journey. It's a grind. I mean, you're in a really, really important role, more so than any other role out there. And taking your time to develop and becoming a pro and doing that it takes time, and guys like him, and there's a lot of top end goaltenders that really started in that East Coast League. And I think we're all really excited to see the Gargoyles play and to see what they bring to the table, and how they can compete. I think they're number 30, the number 30 team in the league now.
30th team in the ECHL. Yep.
Yeah. So,
well, let me put it to you this way: there's 120 jobs ahead of the top ECHL goalie. So there's not that many jobs ahead of them. So a lot of guys, they're 19, 20 years old. They don't want to go back to college. They don't want to go back to juniors, and they're probably not in the top 120 goalies in the world right now. You're going to have to go play in the East Coast League. And that's where Anthony Stolars, he started in the East Coast League as well, too. He worked his way up to the AHL, and now he's in NHL number 1 in Toronto. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of guys. Joey Decord, another one. He started in the East Coast League, worked his way up. I mean, we want to really go back in time. Scott Darling, he started in the SPHL, worked his way up to the ECHL, then went up to the AHL.
Yeah, the Shreveport Mudbugs.
He started in the SP. So, like, hey, you know what? That's the difference, is that for forwards, there's a ton of jobs in the NHL. Defensemen, quite a few. Goalies, there's only 64 jobs in the NHL. So if you're not in the top 64, you have to play elsewhere. So for them to go over to Europe, it's extremely hard, because European teams only get 2 to 3 imports per team. So are you going to waste one on a goaltender?
A lot of them don't want to waste on a goalie.
Very rarely are you going to waste one on a goaltender. That's why you see, I think there's 1 or 2 American or foreign-born goaltenders in the KHL. You go look at like the Swedish Elite League, there's maybe 1. But there are very few outside of North America. So, you talk about it. There's 60 Division I college teams. There's 100 CHL teams, it feels like. Where are all those guys go? They got to go somewhere. They can't go to Europe, so they have to play somewhere. So, I mean, the ECHL for goaltending, you're going to see goalies come out of the ECHL, I feel like, more often than any other player for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For those out there that are listening, the difference between the SPHL and say even the East Coast League, or not even the East, maybe we'll say the SPHL and the NHL, is the team owner picks you up in the SPHL in his pickup truck. You throw your gear in the back and you go to the hotel
for a weekend,
and you're not.
You got a 1 weekend contract.
You're not staying at. Yeah, you're not staying at the Renaissance. You're staying at if you're staying at a Motel 6,
you got lucky.
You're living high on the hog. You got lucky. So they had a room for you. But in the NHL, you get picked up sort of in a motorcade almost, and you brought to the Renaissance, and you're there for more than a day and a half. So, anyways, but again, look back at some of those stories. It's pretty incredible that the true fortitude that you have to work to get there, and it takes work. And if you don't want to do the work, you're not going to get there. Plain and simple.
Pretty much.
So, anyways,
before we wrap on this, Ovi's 20 goals away from the record, and he's
going to do it. He's going to do it this year. Canes Local will stamp it. He's got to get a point every other game, I think, or a goal every other game to close it out. Maybe
a little better than that. Yeah, just a touch over a goal game, basically, or a goal every other game.
Yeah. Every other game. So he can definitely do that. So anyway, so we'll I think we'll take a look at if you guys are okay with it.
Hit the week ahead and then wrap it.
What do you guys have? Yeah, we'll do. How about I know we don't want to. Maybe no, we don't want to do 3
we can
stars.
Do 3 stars. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think we should. I think we should. I mean, there is no star in the first game coming out of first, so we'll have to base it purely on the Vegas game. So who wants to go first? Kyle, how about you?
Sure, I can go first. Hadn't really thought about it, but give me 1 second and I'll come up with something here. My first, I'll start on the first star because I can kind of work my way backwards. First star is going to be Andrei Svechnikov. I thought he was our best forward in both games. Yes, while not having the point total to back it, I think he's finally turned the corner into the right direction. And that's positive to see. Second star is going to be, just for the week, because he's only played 1 game this week, Kochetkov will get my second star of the week. I thought he's the only reason we won the Vegas game, because if out for him, we would probably been down 4-0 going into the first intermission. So hats off to Kochetkov there. Third star of the week, I'm going to give it to him. I didn't think he played particularly well in the Buffalo game, but I thought he's turning a corner, 2 goals in the last game. But Seth Jarvis had a good performance, so he'll be my third star of the week.
All right. Cam, how about you?
Yeah, for me, the third star for me is Martinook, for sure. I think in that Vegas game, he was
going to be there.
Defensive forward. He was so good. Second for me is Svechnikov. I just think even though the points weren't reflecting it, he was still one of the best players. And then top for me is Jarvis. 2 goals in a game. Like I can't not give him first star, basically. So those are my 3.
Surprised Kochetkov's off that list, to be honest. If we're just looking at the week.
Me too. I was going to say ditto, but then again, I'm not now. So, but I do agree with you. I think my third star is going to be Martinook. I thought defensively he was probably our best player from the forward side. Some other guys had glimpses of being there, but Marty was just absolutely off the chain. Created the second Jarvis goal in a great D zone, which could have been and probably would have been a Vegas goal if he doesn't do it with just a simple tap in. So I think Martinook third, and then I'm going with Svech on the second star. I think he had an absolutely outstanding game against Vegas. So
thought he was our best forward against Buffalo too.
Yeah, and he's simplified his game. He's moving his feet now. He's skating more, and I think his power forward presence is becoming more and more evident. And I think that's what we needed him to be. And he's playing to his identity versus trying to play to he's trying not to be Teravainen. He's trying not to be that guy. And I think that's good for him. It's good for us. And I think first start, I'm going to give it to Kochetkov because without him, we do not win that Vegas game. I get the argument on Jarvis, and I could have easily put him third, second, but at the same time, outside of outside of the 2 goals, you know, he was good. He wasn't great, he was good. He positioned himself to get the goals for sure, but I think Kochetkov, without him, there's no way we're in that game, early on, and it's a completely different story. So, so that's mine, Kochetkov, Svech, and
There we
Martin.
go. All right. Who do the Canes have this week, though?
So, looking ahead, we got 2 games this week on the road.
3 games this week
and I
on
did
the
look at
road,
the schedule.
technically.
So, anyways, we got a back-to-back on Tuesday
Monday,
and
Tuesday.
Wednesday, I believe.
Yep. Monday we're in
Tuesday.
Chicago. Tuesday we're in Dallas. Thursday we have Columbus at home,
So
and then Saturday is the Islanders.
So
New
who do
York.
we start? Who do we start in Chicago? Do we start Freddie or do we go back with the
I think
kid
that's a
and let Freddie play against
no.
Dallas?
I think go with Freddie for Chicago. That's a perfect game for Freddie Andersen. He's going to see 15, 20 shots, and that's perfect. Let Kochetkov go against Dallas. Dallas is way more likely to expose us in the first period with speed and energy, especially because our Saturday or Monday game is at 8 p.m. or 8:30, and our Tuesday game is at 8. So technically, we have 30 less minutes of a 24-hour window. So it's going to be less than 24 hours between games. Kochetkov is, we just said this multiple times, when he sees a lot of rubber, he can be one of the best goalies in the NHL. He's going to see a lot of rubber on Tuesday. I think the most logical thing, if Freddie is really 100% ready to go, which clearly shows when he was backing up last night, let him go Chicago. That's a perfect game to get him reintroduced into the lineup.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. So anyways, and then so we'll see. They come home on Thursday night, Star Wars night. So we'll be around all the stormtroopers and everybody in the rink and all that good stuff. So it'll be an interesting week for the Canes. I think it's 3 very winnable games. Dallas obviously
we
being
play 4 games this week.
I shouldn't leave. Well, yeah, I mean the 3 games coming up. The 3 games coming up during the week. We have weekend game. But Columbus, they're one of those teams that, we said, I kind of predicted them to get into the playoffs, and I think they're still sitting in a playoff spot at the moment. But
that's going to be the toughest game of the week for me.
That's going to be a tough game too, and Marchenko, I'll say it again, Marchenko. I mean, he's the Achilles heel of the Carolina Hurricanes. So we got to stop him, and we got to get we got to get to those dirty areas against a team like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think while, yes, I sort of do agree that Thursday will be a tough game, I think Tuesday is going to be our toughest game. I think Dallas is the best of the bunch out of those teams. They have the most offensive weapons, while maybe not playing unbelievably well as of late. Columbus is one of those teams that if you can shut down their transition game, which Carolina can do when playing the right way, they don't have much. They're a very transition-based team. They've been on a hot streak as of late because, again, teams are kind of giving them a lot of room through the neutral zone. If you take that room away, go look at the game we previously played against them. All their goals came in off the rush. Every single one of them, either that or the power play. Take away the dumb penalties, take away the neutral zone. It's a very one of those teams that you can handle very simply. Dallas is one of those games, on the other hand, where even if you play your best game, they have enough talent to where they can still get a lot of scoring chances on you, even if you're playing at your top level. Very Vegas-esque. So to me, it's like we get over that Dallas hump, especially coming off of back-to-back. I think we see a completely different team headed into Thursday. I think the pivot game is going to be that Tuesday Dallas game. We come and we just lay an egg in that Tuesday Dallas game. I don't be surprised if we lay an egg Thursday. Don't be surprised if we lay an egg Saturday. Like it's really going to pivot off of that one. Now we could lose Tuesday and still play a good game. That will put us into a really good situation going into Thursday and Friday. It's really going to pivot off of how we can play in that Tuesday night matchup, which is going to rely heavily on goaltending. Wouldn't be the worst thing if we have Freddie in that game either. It's one of those,
I think he'll get a home start, quite honestly. So I think if he'll get, I think he gets. We'll stamp it. I'll stamp it anyways. I think you'll see him play against Columbus on Thursday.
So he's playing what, Monday or
Monday and then
Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm scared for him to do that.
No, I am too, but I think you're going to see him get a home game sooner than later, because I think it'll be good for the crowd to have him and feel for him to see a home.
Yeah,
home game
if
as well.
if it were up to me and I were the one making the decisions, I'm playing him Monday against Chicago. I'm playing Kochetkov Tuesday and Thursday against Dallas and Columbus, and then I am playing Freddie again Saturday at New York against the Islanders, because again, we just look at how the goaltenders play. Islanders are going to put on 15, 20 shots in the game. That's a Freddie game written all over it.
Yeah.
Columbus is still going to shoot the puck a lot. It's just, can Kochetkov bounce back from the last game against Columbus where he was struggled? He let up a couple softies. You know, I think the best thing for Kochetkov is to have competition back. And it's one of those things that now it's not like, oh, we're throwing in Dustin Tokarski or we're throwing in Spencer Martin because we don't want to play Kochetkov because he's not playing well. Well, we don't know we're going to get a good game out of. We put Freddie in, we know we're going to get a good game out of Freddie. So it's like, Kochetkov, you're not playing well. We do have Freddie now. Like, we can play a different goaltender. So I think it's going to bring the best out of him. Just if I'm Don, or I'm the not Don, but Jesus, yeah, I'm the Columbus GM. No, if I'm Rod, if I'm you know, the goaltending coach, Paul Schoenfeld, that's how I'm laying it out, because then all of a sudden it opens. Kochetkov's going to be well rested for Tuesdays against New York, the Rangers. Mm-hmm. That's one of those games that's a Kochetkov game. That's one that he's already kind of put his label on. He seems to own the Rangers, but you'd still get Freddie in for 2 games this week. I just think playing a Monday and then Thursday is too close.
Yeah. Well,
we don't make the calls,
well, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right, but we don't obviously make the call. But so anyways, we'll let's close it. We'll take a sort of a final shift. Any final comments from you guys?
No, I'm
gotta play better.
Good.
Yep. So, and I will make one final comment. I didn't mention it earlier, and I should have, but you mentioned it, Kyle, and it just triggered it for me. But good on Andrei Svechnikov for staying out of the penalty box. He's really, that's changed when he's changed his game to become that more power forward. He doesn't have to take those stupid penalties. We'll just call a spade a spade. So good on him for doing that. So I just want to make sure I give him props for that. But so anyways, we'll close it for this week. And again, thanks everybody for hanging with us. Make sure to subscribe, follow on Instagram, on all of our social media platforms. Really helps us out. And we're hoping to bring a little bit more content. We got some stuff that we're looking at to bring to you in the future. So stay tuned. Follow us on any platform and subscribe. And we'll talk to you guys next week.